Aloha everyone. So we are going to start with an oli e homai, and I want to start right on time at 5 because we only have 2 hours. And so we're gonna stand and do the oli. Everyone is welcome to join in if you want to, if you feel comfortable. And I apologize, we don't have enough words for everyone, but I know some of you do know that oli. So it's e homai. We're gonna do it 3 times. Mahalo, everyone. So that oli, just a short explanation, is asking for guidance. We're living in historic times right now, on the eve of defueling, and the work that we're going to be doing going forward, all of us in this room, is important work that will determine the future of life here on Oahu. I'm going to start with a few opening remarks, and then we're going to do our oath of office and then some introductions. Apologize, I know it's only 2 hours, but this is our first meeting, so we just wanted to set the tone. And as the CRI, the Community Representation Initiative, we want to make sure it's clear where we're coming from as well. Mahalo. Aloha. Anuai me ke aloha. My name is Helani Sonora Pale. I'm a Kanaka Maoli with deep roots on Oahu, and today I have the honor of having been elected to represent Kanaka Maoli interests and to chair the Community Representation Initiative, also known as the CRI. The Environmental Protection Agency website states that the CRI was added to the 2023 Red Hill Administrative Consent Order in response to public comments received, and gives 10 members of the Hawaiian community an opportunity to work directly with Navy, DLA, the Defense Logistics Agency, and EPA on matters related to defueling, closure, and drinking water safety at the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. To this, I want to say that from November 2021, when 14,000 gallons of fuel stored at the Navy Red Hill facility spilled and contaminated the drinking water for 93,000 Oahu residents, the community has been asking for the immediate shutdown and defueling of Red Hill. Community oversight and a real say in the defueling and closure process, as well as demanding transparency and honesty from all parties involved, most especially from the U.S. Navy. Almost 2 years after the Red Hill spill that has devastated families and contaminated our sole source aquifer, the CRI was formed, and today here we are holding our first public meeting on the eve of defueling. At this late date, we weren't given much time to set up, and this 2-hour meeting will not allow us to cover the pages of questions we have collected from CRI and community members. But I know I can speak for all members here when I say that we are committed to doing our best to serve and to not only be the voice of our community, but also the voice of our Aina and Vai, our land and water. It was a 2-year struggle led by dozens of water protectors to get to this point where we are now, 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, away from defueling 100 million gallons from the Red Hill fuel tanks and having a space for community input and engagement regarding the shutdown of Red Hill. And in fact, some of those who were doing the shutdown Red Hill community organizing these past months are sitting on sitting here today on these tables. What I'm trying to say is that we are not here in this moment in history by the grace and goodwill of the US Navy, the DLA, or even the EPA. We are here in this moment because of the hundreds and thousands of collective voices that have risen up together, both here and abroad, to protect the sacred waters of Moanaliha Aquifer and life here on Oahu. Ola i ka wai. Next, we want to take our oath of office. And does everybody have the agenda? Okay, the agenda was posted online, but maybe I should go over the agenda a little bit first. So that was our Oli and Velina. We're going to take our oath of office, 5 minutes. The next on the agenda is introductions for 20 minutes. After that, we'll hear from Navy, the Navy presentation for 20 minutes. And there'll be a questions and answers portion for 10 minutes. After that, an in-depth discussion of safety protocols relating to defueling, that's 30 minutes. Questions and answers for 15 minutes, and closing remarks, 15 minutes. We will give time for those of you here today that would want to, that have concerns or maybe some questions. We will also be, if we can't get to your question or concern today, we will have a running list of questions and concerns. The CRI will keep that, and we will make sure that we get those questions and concerns answered or addressed at some point. Okay, so we're gonna take our oath of office that was written by our members here. Mahalo, so we'll just stand. I pledge. Okay, let's do it together. I pledge to the Kamali'i of Oahu that I will faithfully serve to the best of my capacity on the Community Representation Initiative, to be the eyes and ears of our community, and to be a kia'i of our Aina and precious Vai during the defueling and shutdown of Red Hill. I also pledge to report back to my community, be transparent with my work on the CRI, and to sound the alarm if I perceive any immediate threat to human health or the environment. I pledge to uphold the cardinal value of Olai Kawai, acknowledging the life-giving waters of this land, and to work for a livable future for generations to come on our island home of Oahu. Mahalo. Okay. We will be introducing each other or ourselves? Okay. So I did my introduction, and maybe we should start from Kimo Franco all the way on that end. Just share your name, what you're representing, and some of your background and education. Mahalo.
My name is David Frankel. I'm an attorney with the Sierra Club. We've been fighting to get the Red Hill fuel tank shut down for several years before the poisoning of our water. I think that's all you need to know about me.
Good evening. My name is Walter Chun. I'm a safety and health professional in the community. I've been doing this for over 55 years. I am concerned with the defueling operations and the protection of our resources. So I was elected to be on this panel of participants to work with the CRI, with the Navy, EPA, and DLA. So I think that's it.
Aloha mai kako, Alfred Kakana Maders, ko inoa no wainai mai ao. Kanaka Maoli, born and raised in Hawaii, come from this aina of Oahu. I am representing the interests of the Native Hawaiians. A little background about myself, I'm in the aina almost all day, every day. I'm a lama vai, I'm a lama iwi, I'm a lama aina. This is our kuleana as Kanaka, and this is my biggest kuleana to ensure that the defueling of these tanks are done properly, to ensure the safety of our people is no longer a threat by this fuel and contamination, and that we have the voice of the people and we also represent them properly. So mahalo for you guys' time.
Aloha mai kako. I'm Ilima DeCosta from Ko'olau. I'm actually here because I think it's really important for everyone to be able to have safe drinking water and safe water to use in their homes. I'm born and raised Kanaka Maoli as well, and most of my ohana is here. So many people that I love are here, and I want to make sure that we can protect our safe drinking water as well as our industry. So we do have water bottles here that we've passed out to individuals. It's actually produced by a local or distributed by a local water company, and I just want to make sure that you know that it's not just about the drinking water that we use, it's about our industry. We want to protect our home life and we want to protect our future, and we can't really protect our future if we don't have safe drinking water. So mahalo to each of you for being here.
Hello, my name is Lacey Quintero. I am a veteran. I'm also a military spouse. I'm a graduate student and I'm at the end of my MSW program. I have a focus on military and veteran social work. My goal here is just to make sure that what happened to my family and the rest of our impacted community doesn't happen.
Aloha, I'm Helani Sonora Pale. I represent the Kanaka Maoli interest, and I'm from Oahu, born and raised. I am an educator, have been for 30 years, and I am the chair of the CRI. Mahalo.
Aloha, my name is Marty Townsend. I live in Kalihi. I grew up in Waimalu on this island, and I'm an attorney by training, and I work at Earth Justice, and I was elected to an at-large seat. Thank you.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Melody Aduha. I am a CRI member representing an organization which is the Democratic Party of Hawaii. I was born and raised here on Oahu. I now live in Kahalu'u, Kaneohe Kahalu'u, so I reign from the moku of Ko'olaupoko. Aloha.
Aloha makako. I am Susan Gorman Chang. I live in Ewa Beach, and I am one of the 4 Oahu resident representatives. I've been very much involved in the Shutdown Red Hill Coalition, specifically with the Neighborhood Board Subcommittee, where we've gotten 31 out of the 33 neighborhood boards to sign a resolution to shut down Red Hill and decommission it forever. I'm also been doing jug exchanges of water with the Shutdown Red Hill Mutual Aid Society. Mahalo. Oh, you have one. Okay.
Aloha, can you hear me?
Yes.
Aloha, my name is Mandy Fines. I'm calling in tonight from Colorado Springs, Colorado, where I currently reside. I was stationed at Camp Smith. No, you can't hear me?
I can. Keep going.
Okay. I was stationed at Camp Smith, and my family was living on historic Fort Island when we were poisoned by jet fuel that contaminated our drinking water and the drinking water at our Children's Child Development Center. They were 1 and 3 at the time of impact. Ever since, I've been a very outspoken advocate, despite my duty status as an active duty Army officer. I, along with Lacey, was elected to represent the impacted families, both military and civilian. And I'm grateful that this has been put together, and I look forward to productive and open communications moving forward. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Miller, and I am from U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I am the senior executive in charge of ensuring compliance with the consent order that we signed with the Navy and Defense Logistics Agency. So my agency's responsibility is to protect human health and the environment. And we are here working with the CRI. We helped to facilitate its formation, but in addition to that, we have technical staff that are out in the field ensuring that the requirements of the consent order are followed. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Karnig Ohanessian. My background is in environmental restoration, conservation, and compliance. I'm with the Department of the Navy, and I am the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Environment.
Thanks. Aloha. My name is Bob Thompson. I work for the Department of the Navy. I am the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy Installations and Environment, working directly for the Assistant Secretary and for the Secretary of the Navy in Washington, D.C. Thank you for the time this evening. Thanks for the chance to get to meet virtually some of you earlier this week. I am thankful for your work. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be with you this evening and look forward to working and moving together. Mahalo.
Hi, good evening. I'm Dave Kless. I am the Deputy Commander for Defense Logistics Agency for Energy, responsible for working side by side with Admiral Wade in the Joint Task Force on defueling Red Hill, and then also working with the Navy in the closure of Red Hill. It's good to see everyone again. Thank you for this opportunity to have this conversation, and looking forward to tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Vice Admiral John Wade. I'm the commander of Joint Task Force Red Hill, and my team was established to safely and expeditiously defuel the Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility to remove the threat that is here today and could potentially threaten future generations. I am absolutely honored to be here, and I want to thank you for what you're doing. I know you absolutely care, and I also know you have linkages with the community, and I truthfully look forward to productive dialogue, not only tonight, but also as we continue this process moving into the future. So thank you.
So good evening. My name is Brigadier General Michelle Link. I am an Army officer. I am the Deputy Commander of Joint Task Force Red Hill and the lead engineer. My background is in engineering. My degrees are in engineering, and as well it is my privilege to be part of this mission and the work that the team has done over the past months and will continue to do in the coming months as we safely and expeditiously remove the fuel from the facility.
Aloha, my name is Steve Barnett. Got here last summer. I'm the Navy Region Hawaii, the commander of Navy Region Hawaii. Blessed and glad to be here, glad to be part of the solution. Looking forward to listening and learning and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Aloha, my name is Rear Admiral Jeff Killian. I'm the commander of Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command. I am the lead and responsible for the environmental cleanup at Red Hill. So my work will span the entire duration of this effort. I'm excited to share with you, should you ask questions tonight regarding the cleanup, what we're doing to date. But I look forward to working with all of you into the future, and thank you very much. Mahalo.
Mahalo for the introductions. So I just want to point out that this table on my right, your left, are the principals. They were the ones that signed off on the consent order, the 2023 consent order. The presenters are on this table, and we will be hearing from them next. Are you folks ready?
We are.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. I have some slides. I'm worried that the light may be in your eyes. Can we just test the first slide, please? Are you okay? This is for the public. You have hard copies, I believe. Okay. Did we give out the hard copies, Whitney? I'm sorry?
She's getting them right now.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I thought this was already handed out. Okay. So, as I said, my name is Vice Admiral John Wade, Commander of the Joint Task Force Red Hill. And you've asked for a defueling update, and I'm honored to give that in combination with Brigadier General Link, who is my deputy and lead engineer. And I'm going to give a little context to give some perspective on the establishment of the Joint Task Force. And then I'm going to give a very wave-tops level of our approach and where we are on our timeline. Then I'm going to turn it over to General Link, who's going to go into the details. She'll go over each of the phases of defueling. She will also discuss the risk mitigations that we have taken throughout the planning process. She will also discuss our preparedness in the unlikely event that we have a mishap, and then also what we have done to protect the aquifer. And then we'll be standing by for any of your questions. Now, before I begin, I do need to make 3 comments. And the first is that some of you are involved in lawsuits against the United States government. And we will answer every question that you have with respect to defueling. But if there's any topic that covers current litigation, we just can't talk about that. And so, again, I want to have a transparent dialogue. I can talk about defueling, but if there's issues that are brought up that are in current litigation, just we can't discuss that, okay? The second is that over the last 96 hours through that table, we've seen a number of requests for documents. And I just want to tell you that every document that you have requested that is already in the public domain, we will facilitate getting you that document. So there were some that you couldn't find on the EPA website, but they're on our website or our app. And we will work with the EPA to ensure that our websites are aligned so you can find those documents. So that is a gap and a seam that you've identified. I apologize for that, and we will get that to you. There are some documents, though, that you've requested that are not currently in the public domain. Some of the reasons for that they could be classified. They could contain information about critical infrastructure that has although unclassed, but it has a separate classification that's why it's not in the public domain. Some of them are intellectual property or procurement sensitive. So we will work with you. My lawyers will give you the information on how to request these through the Freedom of Information Act. Now, I've been in a number of community events with most of you here. I know that brings some sensitivities from the past with respect to obtaining documents, so I acknowledge that. But that is the federal process to obtain documents that are not currently in the public domain. Again, we'll give you all the information and help you submit the process for obtaining those documents. And then lastly, my commitment for me and General Link are to answer every question, but if we can't answer it here, we will come back to you with an answer. When this Joint Task Force was established a year ago, just literally to the day, we have a public-facing website to answer questions from the public, and we will get back to you with those answers, okay? All right. Now I'm going to switch into the context here. As you know, the Red Hill problem set is very, very complex. There's a number of reasons for it. One of those factors that adds to the complexity is that the Red Hill problem set is much more than just defueling, okay? Defueling sets the condition for closure. And closure is a responsibility of the Navy. I know I'm wearing a Navy uniform, but I'm not serving in the Navy billet. I'm a joint officer working directly for the Secretary of Defense in this important mission through the operational chain of command of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. So closure is a Navy responsibility led by Admiral Barnett. There's ongoing environmental remediation that will continue for years, and that is the responsibility also of the Navy, and as Admiral Killian mentioned, he is responsible for that. So, that just adds some complexity here that I want to make sure you understand. The other piece of the complexity is that I am what's called a supported commander. So in my orders from the Secretary of Defense, it says the entire resources of the U.S. Department of Defense are in support of the defueling effort. So in some instances, even though Admiral Barnett is responsible for closure, and that's not my mission, he could support me. And same with Admiral Killian. So it may be confusing, but I just want you to know that if it pertains to defueling and there are issues with response or environmental, I go to them. So, but I just want you to know, for defueling, I am responsible and I'm also accountable. I am the single person accountable. So I just want you to know that. I want the public to know that the dot is on my forehead, that I am responsible for removing this fuel that sits above the aquifer. And I want you to know my team and I are absolutely committed to get this right for the people of Hawaii and our military families and the environment. When I took command, I promised that we would build a complete picture of what we needed to do to safely remove the fuel. We scoured all statutes and regulations at the federal and state level, and we went through every investigation with the May and the November 2021 spills. We went through every finding, every recommendation. We went through the State of Hawaii emergency order. We went through the draft then EPA consent order, which was later signed in the spring of 2023. And we built a 1 to N list. And then we did we put that together, and that's called our integrated master plan. And then from that, we built a critical path methodology, project management term, the schedule of what we needed to do to get from last September to where we are right now to begin defueling. Milestones, gate reviews, continuous assessment. And in order to do that, we had to work by, with, and through the Environmental Protection Agency and the State Department of Health. They are the regulators that hold us to federal and state law. And my commitment to the public was that I would do everything possible to advance the timeline and accelerate it to start defueling earlier. And we codified that commitment in May of 2023 in a defueling supplement that was and is available to the public, where we would commence defueling in mid-October. If we can go to the next slide. Now, I don't want you to read this. I'm not going to talk to this slide. I asked the CRI to look at this when you go home and for future reference. And this is just wave tops, but we have a project management tool that we have used in detail, and it is a requirement to provide updates of this tool to the DOH and the EPA. But each diamond there represents activities that were required of us per all these regulations and laws to get us where we are. I call it a symphony. All different instruments coming in at a different time, at a different speed, at a different, crescendo to allow us to move forward to get to where we are today. And so where are we today? We're almost there. We're a little less than 2 weeks away from commencing defueling. My team and I continue to train through the processes and the procedures that we've built in consultation with fuel industry experts and through the EPA and the Department of Health, and we'll continue to train until game time. We're simultaneously conducting pre-start safety reviews, going from the top to bottom. Every piece of equipment that we're going to be using for defueling, we're checking, double checking, triple checking through established procedures to ensure that they work properly, all to reduce risk. Furthermore, we're working with the regulators to obtain approvals per federal and state law to begin defueling. And I'm proud to tell you that yesterday we received approval from the Environmental Protection Agency to begin defueling. So we are still working to get another approval. That's with the Department of Health. And we have answered, this is an iterative process. We've answered all their questions. They're reviewing everything. They have a walkthrough of the facility on the 10th of October. And so I anticipate hearing from them shortly thereafter. And you've seen in the news and you've heard in my public comments, we've done a lot of milestones in this last year. We had to unpack, that was removing the fuel from the pipelines so that we could do the repairs. We then needed to do dewatering. And if you remember, in the spring of 2022, after the spills, a dewatering evolution was conducted and there was another mishap. I will tell you that that's the reason why the Joint Task Force was established, because the Secretary of Defense had had enough. So we did the dewatering. We removed fuel from the surge tanks, and most recently we repacked the lines. We reintroduced fuel into the pipelines. Each one of those evolutions required approval from the DOH and the EPA. So we're going through the same process, getting the approvals, reviewing everything, doing the training, and so that's where we are. Now, the last thing I just want to say before I turn over the details to General Link, that I do respect this process. I absolutely do. I respect the opportunity to engage with all of you. You know, when I took over this job, the congressional delegation said you need to hear from the people. And I did the best I could, and I established a defueling information sharing forum. And that group honestly took personal and professional risk, in my words, and I requested and asked people to join that came from different segments of the community, respected members of the community that either were state or local representatives in and around the Red Hill area, functional, technical, or cultural experts, to give us a diverse perspective so we could better understand the issues. And then at every other event that public-facing, I've acknowledged and accepted your feedback, and quite honestly, it's allowed my team to better understand your concerns, and quite honestly, the questioning attitude that you've given us, I believe, has made us safer. And what General Link is about to go through right now is some of the byproducts of your engagement and feedback. This CRI, I think, is going to make us even stronger together, and I truly believe that. So let me now turn it over to General Link, who will go over the major milestones. So next slide, please.
So I want to begin by saying there is no playbook for what we are doing here. This has never been done anywhere before. So every one of these evolutions, every one of these CONOPs or concept of operations has required innovation, ingenuity, repetitive work, going back to the drawing board, questioning what we thought we understood, questioning what we knew about the facility, as well as calling through all of those lessons learned. Additionally, there are many members of the community who have been willing to meet with us individually, to share their research, to share their opinions, to ask us questions, to provide their critical comments or thoughts on ways. Had we considered perhaps removing it via truck? Had we considered perhaps distributing the fuel to airports? And so we have gone through that level of due diligence, and we do take the work that the community has done looking at other locations, again, not of this magnitude, because there's no playbook. There's no centralized lessons learned where we could go to assess and get an answer for how to remove 104 million gallons of fuel from a facility when the facility was not constructed in such a way to do this. So we are at the point 2 weeks away, less than 2 weeks, to begin what we are calling the main tank defueling operations. This is where the bulk of the fuel will be removed via gravity from the 14 tanks of the 20 that still have remaining fuel in them. There are varying amounts of fuel and different fuel products in each one of these tanks. Conceptually, how this will work is that with the tankers coming into the pier, to Hotel Pier, we will begin based on the type of product, the available capacity, what's called ullage within the tank that's arriving, and the mix of fuel and products within the tanks to begin the defueling process. Each of the main tanks will be drained via gravity down to approximately the 10-foot mark. They will be drained through their central fuel line, so whether it's an F24 main line or a JP5 main line. Those are the lines that were just repacked during the repacking evolution so that we could then equalize the lines, remove any air, and ensure that they were stable ahead of the tank draining. As we go through that process, the reason that we have to get to approximately the 10-foot level is that there is a suction line below that, and we don't want to break suction and introduce air into the tanks at that point. So once we get to the approximate 10-foot mark, we will stop defueling that particular tank or that main tank. The remainder of the fuel, which I will address subsequently, is part of what we call the flowable tank bottoms. So it's the remainder of the liquid before the sludge that's at the bottom. The sludge at the bottom will be removed as part of the tank closure process. We are just taking the liquid fuel in two primary movements out of the tanks. So again, the main tank defueling operations is set to commence on 16 October. The first ship will be the Empire State, and that tanker is already, you can see it if you near Fort Island or at the pier, it's already there today. So the teams are continuing to go through final training, and by the teams, I mean the Fleet Logistics Center operators, their final pre-safety checks as well. There are two more training events that they are going to continue to execute before they're ready to begin on 16 October. They are ready, they are manned, they are resourced, but we are continuing to train all the way up until that final date when we begin defueling. Tank number 2 will be the first tank that we begin defueling, and then we will finish with tank number 20. I want to point out that we are not going sequentially tank number by number because, again, that's based on the product. It's based on the available capacity of the ship and then the ultimate destination. Excuse me. Otherwise, for main tanks, the predominance of the fuel will come out via gravity defueling really in the first part of the operations. So that will come out pretty quickly. And then we will get to a slower process, which is the flowable tank bottoms. And so we'll go to the next slide, please. So during the flowable tank bottoms, we estimate that approximately 144,000 gallons of fuel will remain in each of the tanks in that flowable tank bottom status. That fuel will be coming out of a 4-inch line, which is a smaller line at the bottom of the tank. It will also be coming out via gravity, so it takes a lot longer. Getting that last approximate 1 million gallons of fuel will take almost as much time as the first approximate 103 million gallons. The 103 million gallons, when it comes through the product pipelines, those are much larger. So you have 16-inch and 20-inch pipelines. You can move fuel at a much more rapid pace than, of course, you can from a 4-inch line. That fuel will continue to come down through the pipelines, and it will go onto a tanker. That will be the last tanker that is coming in to take that flowable tank bottom fuel out. And that period of time is roughly 67 days. So that will take a little bit longer for the remainder of that fuel to come out. At that point, flowable tank bottom draining is complete, and we will move into what we are calling unpacking. So you know that we just repacked the lines, we reintroduced fuel. Unpacking is essentially a repeat of what was done last October, where the teams will then go in again via gravity, to remove any remaining fuel that you see in the main lines there. The colors indicate the different fuel types. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the unpacking will remove that remainder of the fuel into the ships. That will complete the point in which we can drain fuel without any further pumping actions that is coming under its own gravity and pressure out of the system.
Do you want to just talk briefly that ends the gravity defueling phase, and then we are required for the EPA to submit another defueling supplement that will get after the residual fuel. And I've talked about this to many of you before, that we will have residual fuel at the completion of gravity defueling. You know, it's a 3.5-mile facility. We're using 2 of the pipelines to remove the fuel. There's a lot of bends. There's a lot of low-point drains. And in defueling supplement 2, we said that we believe there would be between 100 and 400,000 gallons of residual fuel left. And if you remember at the FTAC, we were in the middle of a detailed survey to get a more refined analysis of where that fuel is. We have completed that survey. Some of you went to the open house last night, but it's on the lower end. We now estimate that the fuel residual will be 64,000 gallons. We have positions and locations of where that is, and our intentions are to submit our defueling supplement update on how we're going to get rid of that residual fuel in the middle of November. So the EPA requirement is to get it to the community by 31 December. We believe we can get it out to the public in the middle of November. So that's our goal, and we'll keep you updated.
So if we could go to the next slide, please. So as we prepare to drain and defuel the facility, there's been a lot of effort and work that's gone into reducing risk. I would love to be able to say we can get to zero risk, but that is something that we strive for and something that we have planned for. But we have put significant effort into reducing risk within the facility. With respect to plans and operations, we have broken down the work within the site by what we call a work breakdown structure, which has allowed us to focus on key functional areas such as training and response, quality assurance, quality safety, as well as repair. Admiral Wade spoke to the integrated master plan and schedule, which allowed us to conduct what-if scenarios. If things or conditions changed, if something was delayed, if we were able to remove some of the float time within the schedule, and what that would mean by way of executing defueling earlier. We established key performance indicators so that we could track achievement of performance goals tied to repairs, tied to quality validations, as well as other internal metrics that we used to mitigate risk. We introduced access control point. We call that an ACP, and those are locations located at the entry points to the facility where we can track individuals coming in. We have cleared contractors. We know who's in the facility. That helps us with accountability, and that helps us to maintain and deconflict personnel that are working jointly within the facility. We also implemented a requirement, which is to have military technical escorts with every contractor that is doing a work repair or doing an action in support of a maintenance activity or some other event that requires a quality assurance oversight. Not somebody just to escort them and watch them while they're there, but that can actually go through what the statement of work was. Did they actually meet the quality assurance, quality control goals of that particular work item before closing out of that action? As far as training, we went through investigation findings. We understand some of the shortcomings that were identified regarding lack of training or inconsistent training. So training was updated for all of the operators at an individual level. So there is both individual from response and FEMA training to operator training on operations orders and maintenance orders that were also updated as a result of the investigation findings. We had individual training for response scenarios in preparation for that, and as well with our roving security and fire watch. We had collective training. So what we did collectively as a team, so a level up, a crawl, walk, run, what did we need to have based on certifications, individual certifications from CPR to the control room, as well then as the collective training for how do we respond. And so when we come together as a team, if there was a spill, then how do we work together? How do we train with Navy Region Hawaii and NAVFAC and those other organizations and interagency partners in order to execute those type of rehearsals? We had culminating exercises in conjunction with the EPA and the DOH, Fed Fire, other Hawaii emergency management organizations. Fed Fire, we looked at culminating exercises in the event of a fire. We didn't just look at spill, but we looked at our responsibilities in the event of fire as well. We had introduced roving security and fire watch. We had that team there for a couple of reasons. One, because we did not reactivate the AFFF system after the November 29 release. The roving security and fire watch is a compensatory measure that was approved in order to reduce the threat of reintroduction of AFFF into the system. That was a deliberate decision that we made collectively in order to protect the environment. As a result, we had to have another layer of security. The water system is still there, it's still active, it's still maintained. So the roving security and fire watch has gone through a rigorous training curriculum. They've gone through low visibility training, they've gone through egress training, they've gone through individual training as far as protective equipment, SCBA, they have gone through CPR, first aid, that type of training, and as well continue to be the eyes and ears for both spill and potential fire. They are in the facility 24/7, and they are monitoring.
I'm sorry, Brigadier Link, but you are over your time, so can you just wrap it up so we can allow for questions? We have a whole list of questions we need to ask.
I respect, ma'am, just give us a couple minutes. We're almost done with
Okay,
the slide.
thank
We
you.
want to show you what we're doing for response protecting the aquifer. Please.
Okay, maybe I'll give you 5 more minutes or 3 more minutes. I don't want to take away time from, this is supposed to be a community engagement. So we want to be able to ask some questions. Thank you. 5 minutes is fine.
Okay, too easy.
Go through the tests. Go through
Yep.
the tests.
And so I'm not going to talk about repairs and enhancements. It's already been spoken about. We are done and through that quality validation process. Testing of the system, the pipeline integrity. For every repair that was made, we have gone through detailed pipeline integrity, hydrostatic pressure testing. We have gone through well testing. You are likely aware of the tank tightness testing, sump tank tightness testing. We have also looked at cyber resiliency. We have gone through the system in a systems of systems approach to ensure that we have integrity all the way up until the point that we begin defueling. The quality and safety, looking at intrinsically safe equipment, we have a policy for that. We have addressed quality management. We have a industrial health lead looking at personal and individual safety. We have a comprehensive test management program, safety and medical reviews, and the pre-site safety survey and review, as well as centralized lockout tagout program. Fuel operations, I spoke about updated orders and the implementation of pressure integrated transducers, tank equalization lines, and in the increase of zone watch standards in support of operations. Next slide, please. Okay, so the last slide that I have talks through really the response preparedness and aquifer protection. Those are two sides of the same overall goal to both respond, to be prepared, and also to protect the aquifer. We have robust mitigations. We've had an aggressive training regimen. We've had 6 drills, proactive federal, state, and local integration. We have over 400 additional protective measures that we've put in place to safeguard the aquifer. You can see in the diagram some of those locations. If you want to go through questions and answers, we are happy to address those. And as well, we have coordinated with our colleagues in the interagency process and gone through those 6 different spill response scenarios and rehearsals, and taken those lessons learned to integrate them into subsequent scenarios that we went throughout this process.
Okay, and I'm going to take the last slide. This is just a scan of our app, but it's the iOS or Google and the Apple. So that is where you can go to the QR code. We have 20,000 downloads already. We intend to provide updates daily on the status of defueling. Not every day is going to be a defueling day. So there will be some days that we have to do crew rest because we've factored in human factors for safety. But we will communicate to the public where we are and what we're doing, and that is my commitment to you. Of course, we will continue this process. We will still have oversight at the state capitol, whether the state Red Hill Oversight Committee at the Senate level. We've got the Governor's Water Committee. We also have our Information Sharing Forum. The congressional delegation demands and requests updates consistently, so we will continue to keep all parties, all stakeholders informed. So thank you again for the opportunity to give you a defueling update, and we're standing by for your questions.
Okay, thank you so much for that presentation. And I want to hand it over to, did you want to ask the questions first, or Lacey? Who should we start with? Okay, thank you. So we're going to have Lacey ask some questions that our committee has prepared.
Okay, so I do appreciate all the technical training explanations, but we are coming up on the anniversary of what happened to the impacted families and the reason why I'm sitting here today. And in all of these slides, I do not see any procedures on notifying people in the event of worst case scenario, fires, explosions, leaks. I'm concerned about all of the people who live on the line, both military and civilians, and schools in the area as well, given the location that's close to, some of those are close to the pier. So if you could please tell us what would you do to prevent, to notify, please, and what preparations are you taking in worst case scenario?
I appreciate the question. And when you look at the 2 investigations, the May and the November, it's clear that there was a shortcoming in the communication to the public and to our military families. So if we have an issue, immediate notification to the regulators, and then we will communicate to the public and our military families. We have rehearsed that in our drills, and that's critical to have transparent communications. Do you want to talk about your responsibility in the ROC in communicating with HIEMA and the state and local officials on how they would get the word out to the community, and then also how you get the word out to our military families?
Okay, just a couple of quick items here, and thank you for this opportunity. And like Admiral Wade said, after the 2021 fuel spill, we took a hard look at our response program and leverage expertise from outside of the Navy along with inside the Navy. This is my 3rd region that I have been the commander of, and I'll tell you that there were a lot of things that we needed to address, particularly as it came to communicating better with our families and working with the regulators. What I'll tell you is that as a result, we've got an interagency spill response planning team, and what that means, big word is it's comprised of on-scene coordinators. It's going to be folks from the Navy, from the EPA, from the Coast Guard, also from the Department of Health. We've already stood this up. So part of this training has happened before and during the defueling process, and I feel really comfortable that we've improved our communication, which I'll talk about in just a second to you. And the team is trained, and we've been practicing, as mentioned earlier, 17 exercises in over about 18 months that we've been going back and forth and been getting those sets and reps that are needed and that are expected. One of the things that I'll tell you is that regarding the communication, in effect, in effect, what we're going to do is we have something called, like the Admiral mentioned, we're going to reach out to the state. We're also going to reach out to the EPA, which is the national federal side of it. So from the state, we're going to be reaching out to the State Emergency and Response Commission, called the CERC. And then we're also going to reach out to the National Response Center, which is just another name for the EPA. It's their duty line, who we're actually going to be reaching out to call there. Once that happens, we set up a unified command. So what does that mean? Well, this unified command is not just federal, it's state, and it's also the federal folks that are sitting together, walking our way through this process. It'll be established, and we're going to work side by side. So there's not going to be any silos. We're going to be in the same place where we're going to be sitting next to each other and making all the important decisions at the actual incident command posts. So what this offers is we're sitting in the same room like we are here. We can talk together. We have already got those relationships built. Key is this is going to provide a common operating picture, which is going to help our communication side of it. Now, in that unified command, we're going to have something called a JIC. What a JIC stands for is a Joint Information Center. That's where, just think of it, all the public affairs teams and everybody will be together, not just from the federal side, but from the state. Everybody will be sitting there, and then we'll be able to work together to get the information out and to provide timely messages out to the public. So, so the big so what from that is that we've improved, and we're going to be getting our messages out. How are we going to do that? Well, we have certain things that we can do on board the installation. Things like, and I know for the military folks or the folks that work on the installation, we have something called Giant Voice. We also have something called ad hoc. What ad hoc is that's a way that messages are texted out and sent out to individuals. We also have for our kids that are in schools, in my region, we have something called a school liaison officer, also called a SLO. We have good relationships with the schools, so we'll be feeding that information back and forth. Social media, press releases. We have spouse support organizations called ombudsman, and there's nothing to preclude us from going door to door as required. So I've already scoped that out. There's ways that we can do that. So we can't over communicate this. There's different ways. There's no one communication path that works for everybody. So we have to swing a lot.
Thank you. I think Walter had a question next. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for showing up and being willing to share with us information. A colleague of mine that I've known for a long time and a friend used to have this one saying, and she would say it all the time. It's, you don't know what you don't know. All of us sitting here, we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what you know. And so some of the things that you tell us, like for example, your notification process, very cool, sounds really great. All I know is when I'm sitting in my house in Kalihi, if there is a fire at Red Hill or if there's a big problem with Red Hill, you guys are not going to come to my house. So how am I going to know this? And the notification and your Joint Information Center is really cool. Does it have all of our public media, our people, the people that are going to report to us and tell us what they know? And again, you don't know what you don't know. So what information is provided to them, they relay to us, and it's really critical that, especially when in time of crisis, Lahaina has really taught us that. If we didn't know it already, we sure know it now today. So some of the concerns that I expressed, and I went to the open house, and I thank you guys for spending the time with me and being patient with me in my questions and my concerns. And I would just like to give you just a couple of bullets, and I don't expect to get an answer tonight. But one of the issues will be, as we go through the process of looking at stuff and trying to learn what we can, we're going to have questions. And how often are we going to meet? How quick are we going to get a response? And what kind of a response are we going to get? One of the things is the source water protection plan. I think Amy had mentioned that to me. The source water protection is the aquifer. If any of us are here for anything, it's that aquifer. Your slide had mentioned 400 protective measures for the aquifer. Very good. But what does that tell me exactly? Should there be 800 protective measures, or should there just be 200? And you guys are really overkilling it. Again, perspective. We don't have that kind of perspective, and makes us lose sleep overnight, especially when it comes to that aquifer. Keep in mind, and I know we've said it over and over again, and I can't say it to you enough. That aquifer and the protection of our water and our land is our future generation. I have children and grandchildren, and I have great-grandchildren. And I look to them and I wonder and I worry every day about whether or not our resources are going to be here for them tomorrow. I see it being destroyed day in and day out. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. For those of you that didn't hear me, I apologize. So some of the information on the website, I'm glad that we have that website, but the information is not, it's not complete, it's not working. So I had originally submitted a request for copies of the 8 enclosures. If you go to the website, the fueling supplement is there for October 2nd, but the one that was submitted in May is missing. And the enclosures I had asked for was the 8 enclosures for that supplement. So I don't know what happened. EPA has that supplement on their site, but it's the same problem. We can't open the enclosures. So again, it's timing. October 16th is right around the corner. We're concerned. We want to look at a lot of the information that is in there. Some of my really concerns, and I had expressed this at the open house, is egress from the tunnel. We have workers in there. Our friends, our family are going to be working in there with you. So if there's a problem in the tunnel, there's one way out through the tunnel apparently, and they have to travel a mile and a half, however far it is. They're carrying an SCBA, maybe with 45 minutes of air. How are you going to get our guys out? How do you know? I know you mentioned an access control point, but that means somebody's checking their names off as they're coming out. 5 guys are missing. How are you going to find them? And during the critical time that you need to. One of the questions I will pose to you, and I've submitted a list of 21 questions, I believe, and I'll add to it, and I'll keep it as a running list of questions. But one of the questions I have is, have you looked at those things that people do in mines? How do they account for people? How do they protect them? How do they find them in case of an emergency? Most of them are carrying a monitor, so we can, during an emergency, that computer is clicking as these guys come out. I know which guys came out. I know how many came out, and so on. Those are the kinds of questions I think I have, and I still have more questions on the worker safety and health. And again, believe me when I say that I'm not questioning you or criticizing you. I'm back to, you only know what you don't know, or we're trying to find out what we don't know, to encourage us to help build our trust. So I think I'm burning out of time here. So one other thing that you said, Admiral, that has struck a nerve. We asked for information, and we want to get the information as soon as possible. The minute you tell me to go to a FOIA, all of us, do you know what it takes to go through a FOIA? The answers we get back, the time it takes to get a response, and we can appeal, we can do this, or we can do that. I would ask that you reconsider about getting us the information. If it really has to go through the FOIA process, then fine, but please take the effort to try to get us the information quickly. We were formed late. October 16th is right around the corner. We really don't have a lot of time to be able to look at the things and express our concerns. So thank you again.
So thank you. There's a lot there. So I'm going to just wave top answers for you, and then we'll have continued dialogue to answer your questions. What you said about Lahaina, that resonates with me. One of the elders, or Kapuna, yesterday pulled me aside in private and said, we've got to have communication. We've got to have communication to the public and to the military families if something happens. I'm committed to that, okay? You asked if we are going to be transparent. And words don't mean anything. It's what actions that count. And all I'll tell you is that you're well aware of the AFFF incident that happened in November. And you know, I don't want to go into details there. It shouldn't have happened. It did. But Admiral Barnett and I did a conference call that night We called the EPA and DOH. I spoke with Mr. Lau. The next day we did a press conference. So, and then the recent example is when we were doing repacking, we had a drip. We had a drip that was one drip, okay, every 50 minutes, and then we tightened it. We had one drip that was every 4 hours. We reported it in the news. I mean, that's a drip. Industry standards, they would never report it. But because this is Red Hill, because of the sensitivities, because of the respect and the lessons learned from what have happened, we will be transparent. And I just going to give you two examples instead of just giving you my word, and that's what we'll do. Aquifer protection. These 400 actions, and that's a fair question. Can you do more? I'm not an expert, but we have worked with, by and through the DOH and the EPA. We have literally walked every square inch of the facility. Any crack, any potential penetration, we've sealed. You know, because of the 2014 spill, there are surveillance wells to monitor if a plume is moving. We have gone through, you see pictures there of gasket material and then weighted sandbags. We've literally gone through everything. But as Mr. Lau has taught me, you know, it's a concrete tunnel, and concrete is porous. So no matter what we do, there's still, you know, a chance to get into the environment. That's why we've implemented all these risk reduction measures. But the protections we've made for the aquifer are really what, and I'll have to defer to the DOA, to the EPA here on the groundwater protection plan, the source water protection plan, because we got those approved through the regulatory process through federal and state law. And then your comments about egress are well taken. One of the things that concerned me when I took this job is we had no idea, and when I say the Department of Defense, who was in the facility. It's true. We do now. We have personal accountability. We know where they are. But you again, this is why I respect the process. We don't have monitors for our team. We have devices where, you know, they have something that, you know, to detect any type of chemical, and so that they know that there's a problem there, the sensors. So we will look into that. And again, the Department of Defense has given me resources. Our congressional delegation is, I'm thankful to them, has, you know, secured over $1 billion. And so we'll look into that, and I'll give you feedback on our research. So thank you.
Thank you. So we have one more question from Mandy, and then we're going to go right into the questions for safety protocols. And I don't know if, how many of our CRI members have specific questions on the safety protocols? The culture monitor, okay. So we have a couple, and then you have a couple questions there. And then we can open it up if anybody in the audience has a question after we do the safety protocol questions. Okay, so I'll have Mandy ask her question, and then we will move on to the safety protocols. Thank you.
Thank you. Marty, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to start by saying that, as you can imagine, as a service member, this incident has been extremely difficult for me. Not only were my kids poisoned by my own employer, I got to see families being retaliated against for advocating for their own families, and feeling completely betrayed and left behind by the Navy. In particular, I've been most upset about the narrative that continues to come from the Navy about how transparent, and I've even heard it a couple times tonight, you have been with folks. So bear with me for a minute as I provide some context. Early on, the DOH explained multiple sources of exposure, one of which being inhalation. We also came to learn about vapor intrusion. For months, residents requested in-home air quality test. All of those requests were denied. On 19 July, just last year, 2022, Representative Sunny Gainadin asked a panel, including Admiral Barnett and Admiral Dean Vanderlei, who we know is now retired, and one of the flag officers who recently received a letter of censure as part of the Navy's newest accountability campaign. Admiral Barnett, you said, quote, "I don't know that we are doing any air quality monitoring." Admiral Vanderlei said, quote, "We are not doing air quality testing. I'm not aware of any thoughts from the regulatory community that that would be appropriate. I've never heard that air quality was something that was advised." With saying that, it's clear to me that despite the numerous Red Hill fuel spills over the past 8 years, air quality monitoring has never been a priority for the military. On Monday, residents received an email with a backdated memo dated 22 September notifying them that air quality testing was happening around the base. Your community outreach liaison, or POC, Ms. Lila, for this project told multiple residents, including me, that this was not at all related to the defueling of Red Hill, despite the very interesting timing of this project. She stated that this was simply baseline testing, something that we were doing to be good stewards of the environment. I raised this issue on Monday night with the EPA and the Pentagon rep sitting across the table. EPA did not have a response. Mr. O, you responded that you weren't sure that the air quality was related to defueling, further that this could be one of the many environmental projects happening in Hawaii. Admiral Wade, just last night at the town hall, you addressed air quality with one of the folks who came on an Instagram live, and you indicated that this project, for the first time, was related to defueling. So here are my questions. In the spirit of transparency, can you please clear the air? Why is air quality monitoring happening? Why is it happening? Who ordered this project to happen? This isn't something that happened overnight. It was clearly planned for. There was funds associated and appropriated to this project. I want to know who ordered this project, what level of command? Why are they being placed in these particular locations? Why now? Why not in the homes? Why did you never conduct air quality in the homes, knowing how many people continue to get sick, and one of the biggest exposures is inhalation? And my last question is, why the continued lies in messaging to our community? After all of this time, our community deserves to have actual transparency. And after 2 years, it's clear that we have different definitions of what transparency truly is. But I would like to know why the miscommunication, because as you know, this only continues to create controversy and chaos in the middle of a crisis for these people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. So if anyone from the presenters can answer that, thank you.
So there's a lot there. As far as air quality monitoring during the November spill and the water crisis, that's something that we just can't talk about because that is part of active litigation. Ms. Feint asked or said that when I was asked a question yesterday at the open house, there was a question, and I said that we are adhering to all federal and state laws that are dictated by the EPA and the Department of Health. So that's how I answered that, and that is true. As far as the air quality sensors that are on base, that's beyond the purview of me for defueling. I defer to Admiral Barnett or Admiral Killian if you have any idea here, but that's not something that I'm aware of, and if not, then we'll get an answer back to you.
Okay, thank you for the question. So,
Yeah.
no, I'm aware. So there's been
It's not for defueling, but there is someone here that can answer.
So we are installing now at this time, we're placing 52 air monitoring devices across the Joint Base, 12 in proximity and in coordination with the regulatory agencies in and around the Red Hill facility in conjunction with defueling, and then 40 above and beyond that minimum across the Joint Base as good measure.
Can you explain why and to serve what purpose and what they're detecting?
So it is to, yes, sir. So the purpose of these is to detect any anomalies in the air quality standards that we have to comply with on the base. And if there's any exceedance, that is just another indicator, if you will, that there's an issue, and that's the intent.
Thank you. Her question is, who ordered air quality testing after all this time?
I'll have to take that as a comeback answer, but I'll track that down.
Okay, he said he'll get back to you, Mandy. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next agenda item, which is the in-depth discussion of safety protocols related to defueling. And we're just gonna go right into questions and answers. Right now, we are at 6:14, and this meeting will adjourn at 7. So our time again is limited. Mahalo. And we will start with Susan Gorman-Chang.
Yeah, just very quickly, I want to make sure. So these air quality monitors, Admiral Wade, you were not aware of them, even though they are in proximity to the Red Hill jet fueling. Is
That's
that correct?
I am not aware.
That's correct. This is another example of lack of communication between you all. Okay, so my question is on page 78 of the defueling plan. It talks about ongoing soil vapor monitoring. Can these readings be made public? I'm sure the EPA knows about fence line monitoring systems like surrounding oil refineries, et cetera. And there's technology where you can put these out on Wi-Fi and you can get them on their phone. An example is Purple Air with particulate matter measures, and you can get them 24/7 all around the world. So can we have those in real time to the public?
I'm sorry, I was taking notes as you were asking a question, ma'am. So the soil vapor monitoring data is posted on the Safe Waters website. Let me take a note here about the additional ask that you had. I can take a look at that and we can come back to you. So about the real-time posting of that data, did I get that correct?
Yes, so you're saying how often is it posted?
Yeah.
Real time is every 5 minutes.
No, it's not posted that often.
Correct.
So let me come back and find out. We posted all of our data at least weekly, and let me see what I can do about the frequency of that.
Okay, thank you. And again, is that related to Red Hill?
So as part of our environmental remediation and cleanup, the soil vapor monitoring ports, we have pins, I should say, we have 52 of those placed inside of the Red Hill facility itself.
So it is part of Red Hill?
It is.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Okay, and yeah, on page 24, it talks about the contractor will prepare and obtain Navy approval for the spill response plan. Could we have the name of that contractor, and is this the same contractor you were using when the Red Hill November 2021 disaster occurred?
Are you talking, ma'am, are you talking closure plan, or this is?
No, this is defueling. Page 24.
All right, well, we've got the defueling supplement here. Let's take a look at the context of the question. If we don't have an answer for you, we'll include that as one of our responses back to you.
Okay, it's not included in the JTF defueling supplement, too?
Okay, page 24 of the defueling supplement.
Right. Yeah, the one that was just posted October 2nd.
I think that's a closure plan, ma'am. Our defueling supplement is dated May 15th. Page 24 is deliverables that are required per the DOH and the EPA, and it lays out a timeline from May through October 1st of what's required by statute before defueling.
Is it? Yeah. Maybe I'm.
Is that? It's okay. It's all right.
That's closure.
Yeah, ma'am, this is the Red Hill tank closure plan.
Okay, okay.
Okay?
Okay, so that's not under discussion
So
tonight. Okay,
this
no
is
problem.
a question for Navy for closure, and,
Okay.
okay, but closure is part of the consent order, so
Mm-hmm.
it's a fair question, but this is for Admiral Barnett and the team.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
You okay? Okay, all right.
Sorry, thank you, Susan. And by the way, there's sandwiches and chips out there. Please help yourself. We're gonna go to Al Medeiros and then to Kimo Franco after for more questions. Thank you.
Aloha. Mahalo for trying to respond back to all the questions that we have for you guys. I just got, it's more than a question, it's an inquiry. I think you guys should have cultural monitors there. As somebody that represents the Native Hawaiians, this spill can't happen again. And it seems that, we only have inside people working, right? Whether it's the Navy or government officials. I think somebody of the public, especially a Kanaka Maoli like myself, should be oversight and looking over the whole operation of defueling, just in case anything ever happens. Because as you say, you don't even know how to, contact people until, social media, whatever media comes through, is gonna take time. Like Walter says, you're not gonna go door to door to people's houses in Kalihi or anywhere else on the island. Kapukaki Red Hill is the heart of our Vai. That is not only just in the area of that residence, right? Everywhere from east to Mauna Loa to the west of Waianae can be affected by it. So I think you guys should, put together something where you guys have cultural monitors, just like how construction companies do when they do developments, just in case bones are ever, dug up. The same thing with this. This is something of very importance, and I think a cultural monitor should be on site, at least multiple.
Hey, sir, thank you for your feedback. As you know, that not only do I have General Link as my deputy commander and senior engineer, but my director of legislative affairs, community engagement is Brigadier General Lance Okamura from Hawaii, Native Hawaiian descent. I will consult with him and we'll take a look at this, sir. Thank you. And I do want to let you know that I do understand the importance of the area in and around Red Hill. General Okamura has trained our entire team, understand the importance of water. I know the burial grounds, I know the places of worship, thousands of years, that has informed us each and every day. So I just want you to know that my team, everyone, has an understanding of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I second what Al said about cultural monitors. And then we're going to go to Kimo Franco. Thank you.
I have 3 quick questions and then a more complicated question. So is all the AFFF out of the facility in terms of out of the pipes? There's no AFFF there anymore, right?
So there are 3 AFFF systems that support the Red Hill facility. There's one AFFF system that is in the upper portion of the Red Hill area. That system is disabled. That is the AFFF system that was involved in the spill in November of 22. While it's disabled, there is still approximately 900 gallons in the AFFF header. It has not been removed. That is still there. That will be removed as part of the closure process. So I defer to Admiral Barnett on the process for removing that. But so that is the status. The 2 other AFFF systems are down at the underground pump house. That's the bottom end of the facility on Joint Base Pearl Harbor, where the control room is, but where all the pumps are. And this control room in the pump house doesn't only support Red Hill, it supports the entire base. So when fuel comes down, or when it did, then pumps would push it to other locations, to the upper tank farm or to Hickam. And right now, the only fire suppression system that can support a fire, and also at the upper tank farm, is AFFF. And then there's a small pump house that directs fuel to the airport, and that is covered with AFFF. Now, the Department of Defense is removing AFFF, and it's required by law, and I think it's, and I'm not an expert, but I think it's by 2024. Is that correct, Okay. And so the Navy, and I'll defer to the environmental folks from the Navy, but the Navy is working plans to remove AFFF and conform to new industry standards so that because of the recognition of PFAS. When we did our risk assessments, we looked at, is there a way to remove AFFF from the entire system? And unfortunately, it's not possible to replace the AFFF. If we had waited to do replace AFFF, it would have extended the defueling timeline. So that's where it stands. Okay?
Defueling is going to take place 24 hours a day, 9 to 5. What's the plan on that?
So defueling will take place once we start gravity defueling for a tanker. It'll go 24/7 with rotating crews. We have consulted with industry experts to look at human factors, fatigue, stress, and such. So like I mentioned earlier, that there will be days that we're not going to defuel because even though we're going to rotate and we're going to have watches come in and do a turnover, which is layered so that we reduce risk, there will be times that we're going to stop so we can just reset. We're also going to do continuous assessment. In other words, we have a plan that we have right now, but if we go and we're in a couple of weeks and we're seeing that there's an issue, then we will reassess and then we will be communicative to the public. But that's what we have to do. And this is not, that's what industry does. And that's, our approach. I know you just came in. Did you have anything else more on that?
I didn't hear the question.
Okay, it's okay. If you're not satisfied,
that's fine.
All right.
Switching, so theoretically, the major defueling should be done end of January, potentially. That's what it sounds like to me. But then there's still the low points in the fuel system. What's the time scale on that, do you think?
So right now with our defueling timeline, gravity defueling will end approximately January 19th.
Yeah.
Now, again, we're going to continuously assess. We'll keep the public informed. Once gravity defueling ends, we're going to transition to the next phase to get the residual fuel. Our calculations, based on what we've learned through the repair process, because we found residual fuel in the pipelines, even though we did unpacking. That's what made us realize, we're continuing to learn. I'm just being honest with you. This is iterative. But we calculate that the residual fuel will be removed by April or May.
Okay. And then switching topics, the fueling is going to take place at Hotel Pier. That's where the fuel is going to go.
Yes.
I have concerns about the leaks that occurred at Hotel Pier in 2021, 2022, 2020, 2021, and 2022. I want to know, I guess I'd like to see a document establishing that the pipeline that was leaking, that's the, I guess is the defuel pipe, it's not just disabled, but it's not connected. I don't speak engineering, so I would like, I've seen things about these devices that are used, but I just want to know that pipe that was leaking is not connected to the pipeline that will be defueling. I also want to know whether there has been, whether the leaking that occurred that was reduced to about a gallon a week has completely stopped. I want to know. I haven't seen a document about that. Thank you.
Okay. So I can't talk about past spills because there's active litigation. Okay. But what I can tell you is that we were required by both the EPA and the DOH to test the integrity and the safety of Hotel Pier. We were also required by Congress. In the National Defense Authorization Act, our congressional delegation put in a bill for us to do a test. So 3 sources, 2 regulatory and Congress. And I can tell you that the Hotel Pier is safe and has been cleared for defueling, all documents submitted to the DOH and the EPA, and that is part of their approval to support defueling. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kimo. So we're gonna go to Melody and then Marty, and then we're gonna go back to Walter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. All right, I have several questions as well. I want to start, though, however, with the PFAS, because I'm very concerned about that. That was excavated after the November 29th, 2022 spill. Where did it go? I mean, you excavated and put in 55-gallon drums. Then where did it go? Is it still on island, or did it leave the island?
You got that?
Thank you for your question, ma'am. Actually, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I actually went to the place that it's stored on board the installation. It's awaiting contractor removal, but I have put eyes on. We have a team there that's actually checking that and just making sure that not only that is secured, but also the equipment that was used is not being reused also. So we have that, I've seen it, and that's in my scan, along with my NAVFAC teammates here on that.
Okay, thank you. And has the soil been tested since then?
That I cannot answer. Not since then.
Okay. Yes, can you test it? We want to make sure. I mean, now that the EPA has come out with its interim AEL, which is 4 drops or 4. I can only explain it visually. I know it's parts per trillion, 4 parts per trillion, which equals 4 drops in 20 Olympic-sized pools. And now you're telling us that there is still 900 gallons in those pipes? Is there any way that it can be removed and replaced? I can understand that you need to have it in case of a fuel fire. However, there are other materials that do not contain PFAS that can be used and should not, I would imagine, close down or stall the defueling process. More importantly,
So,
I think,
thank you
is
for
to
your
make sure it is
question.
not
Sorry, I didn't mean
not
to-
available. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to step over you. I thought you were done. I do want to talk about a few things. So first of all, the testing piece, that has nothing to do with the defueling. So I'll defer to Navy, who's responsible for the testing of the facility with PFAS. But with the consent order, you did ask a question that is related to defueling, and that is this 900 gallons that is still in this AFFF header. And the reason why it's still there is because to remove it, with all that we were doing with the repairs and everything we were doing to set up for defueling, if we focused on that, it would have delayed our defueling. So that's why we disabled the AFFF system. It cannot be activated. It's stable and safe in the pipeline. Okay, every amount of AFFF that was still in the header from the house that had the pump that went underneath the ground into the adit, that has all been removed. All been removed. And that was the priority because we were concerned about the potential release into the environment. Okay? But again, my mission is to balance environment, safety, and to try to remove the fuel from the facility as soon as possible given the threat to human health and the environment. So the 104 million gallons compared to the 900, knowing that the 900-gallon removal would have to delay our start of defueling, that was a risk decision that I made.
Well, thank you for that, but you've made a lot of risk decisions that doesn't appear to be feasible or reasonable. I apologize, but I know a lot of the piping that's holding the AFFF is built on a substandard material. So there is always going to be that risk when it's built not to standard material. And now you're telling us that it's still there and you're not going to remove it. when there are other alternative materials available?
Thank you for your question. So there is the AFFF header that is steel, and then there is a retention line. This retention line is related to the November spill because what happened, as you know, fuel in May then got sucked up into this AFFF retention line. That is PVC, okay? That is not where the AFFF is sitting right now. The AFFF is sitting in a steel pipe header, is secure, it is safe, and again, I made the decision to not remove that from the facility so we can stay on our accelerated timeline.
You mentioned about a drip that's happening every 4 hours. What is that is dripping?
It's not, ma'am. So when we repacked the lines, which was a dangerous evolution, because you mentioned risk. We're dealing with risk every single day. To mitigate that risk, we have the newly installed cameras, which was feedback from the community. But we also have our roving security and fire watch. And when we reintroduced the fuel, they were, and they continue, to look at the integrity of the pipelines constantly, 24/7, boots on the ground. And after we reintroduced the fuel at a very hard place in the underground pump house, it was below grates, below other pumps, they noticed that there was a drip. And so they wiped it, and the drip was one drip every hour. So we tightened the screws, and the drip then was reduced to one drip every 4 hours. And we tried an emergency repair, and it wasn't an emergency, but if we were to conduct a fueling with this drip, it could lead to something larger. So we made a risk decision to conduct a repair where we removed fuel from that section of the pipe. We removed that low point drain, and we installed a new one. And then we reintroduced the fuel. And we did that with change management process that was mandated by the EPA. And when we did do that, we notified the public that we're stopping repacking. It's going to delay us for about 2 days until we do this repair. And then we did the repair, then we did a quality review, we did our testing, and then we were cleared to continue. That was the deliberate and methodical approach. So I only highlight this to you because this is important. I want you to have confidence that everything that we're doing is in the utmost respect of knowing what this community went through, and that we are adhering to federal and state law, and with respect to the state, the regulators who hold us to a standard. And that's what I was giving you an example, because I know that words cannot heal the wounds that that you've all been through with the experiences. So I was trying to explain 2 instances where we tried to communicate while we were doing action and what the response was.
Okay, my last question. Talk about healing wounds. We all received from the Board of Water Supply this pamphlet, and it basically says that our water bill will be going up 50%. And part of the reason why is because of the wells, the new wells that needs to be built as a result of Red Hill spills. Now, I'm sure the general public feel the same way as I do, that we should not, the general public should not be responsible for any type of additional infrastructure and damages that the Navy has caused as a result of Red Hill. So how are you going to compensate us, in a sense, by taking responsibility of having the Board of Water Supply rebuild its infrastructure and not have the general public suffer, as we are already with the high cost of living, having to pay for the damages that you have caused, the Navy has caused with Red Hill? Thank you.
Thank you. Yesterday's open house, this topic came up a number of times. So you're right. I'm aware of the proposed increases for water. the Red Hill is one of many variables that are playing into that. And I can't go into the process for this potential increase. That would be a question for the mayor and for the Board of Water Supply. But your specific question is, what am I going to do? Well, that's your question is a policy question. We here execute policy. But I have already informed the Office of the Secretary of Defense the community's concerns with the potential rate increases for water, and they are aware. And so I can't do anything more than to communicate to my senior superiors, but they are aware of this concern, and I will continue to voice that because I was told by the Secretary of Defense, you're my eyes and ears, let me know when there's a concern, and I've done that.
Based on that question, I would like to ask Bob Thompson if you could please respond. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me? Sorry. Can you hear me now?
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the question. I will give you the status as I understand it. As Admiral Wade mentioned, this is a policy issue. Bless you. This was raised directly to the Pentagon, up to the Office of the Secretary of Defense, and into our office through both Mr. Ohanessian and then to myself. It has been raised with my boss, the Assistant Secretary, who I know is in communication with the mayor, the governor. But again, where I'm at, I can't predetermine or predispose what that outcome is. I can just tell you it has been appropriately elevated by the local team to the policymakers in the Pentagon, and that is an ongoing discussion with leaders here. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna we're running behind. We're at 6:41 right now, and so I'm gonna push closing remarks down to 5 minutes, so we have a little bit more time for the questions. And then I just ask that also, because we're on the eve of defueling, we want to keep the questions to the safety protocols, and that's what I think all of us are most concerned about. Did you have questions? Okay. And Marty's going to ask some questions.
Thank you. First, I wanted to highlight the app. I took a moment to take a look at that, and thank you very much for putting that together. I think it's an excellent communication device. Some feedback. Sure. I think you should, you should put out emergency alerts through the app. People who are particularly concerned, especially neighbors to Red Hill, I think would appreciate having some sort of targeted communication opportunity there. I think people are very concerned about the ventilation. If fuel is released, it will come up through vents they didn't know were vents in their backyards, and fire as well. And so, yes, I think that would be a good communication tool. Second, one page on the app lists like a countdown with like the number of gallons, right? It's like, till 0, right? Great. Good framing, nice. But it's only 104 million gallons, and we know that there's actually more fuel, right, because of the sludge and the, the stuff below 10 feet down, right? So I'd like you to change that number, right? So you can maybe have like 3 different numbers up there, one for the liquid fuel, and then one for the heavier fuel, and then one for the actual like stuff you have to scoop out at the bottom. I just want to make clear so that people understand that just defueling the liquid fuel doesn't mean that it's dry in there. I would also like to see the shifts of the people working there reflected on the apps. I think it would help us as the community who are watching this closely to at least know who we're praying for while we're praying that everything goes well. The employees have been a challenge in the past, to put it lightly. And so, I learned last night that there will be 3 people working in the control room, 2 operators and a supervisor, and I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that they don't get tired. I have been in Red Hill. I have seen all the blinking lights. There's a lot going on in that control room, and so this is like flying an airplane, right? And so I just want to make sure that these people are snap into it, they're fresh. And so having some information relayed about when shift changes happen, I think would help give people confidence in what's going on. I'm concerned about the hotel pier, as David Kimo-Franco mentioned. In particular, there are sump pumps there, and I know that area tends to flood when it rains. It's in a low-lying area. And I want to know that you all are going to suspend fuel movement activities when there are heavy rains, which we can expect during the winter months. In particular, because of the way the French drains work there, the risk of there being, something happening that shouldn't happen seems higher to me during heavy rain periods. Yeah, are you able to confirm that you won't be pumping during heavy rains? Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the attributes that we will continue to monitor operationally is rain, and is one of the attributes that we will continue to monitor as we do this operationally is the weather, whether that's rain, whether that's hurricanes. I know you're talking about the underground pump house. You're talking about the French drains and the sump pumps that go down there, and the propensity if the groundwater becomes high. Tracking all. If there is ever a safety issue that would inhibit safety fueling, then we will make the decision to stop. But I cannot say that we are going to stop if we have a tanker and we are defueling it. If it's raining and the situation doesn't warrant stopping defueling, then we will continue to defuel. If the situation is unsafe and warrants a safe shutdown of defueling, that is the risk that we will balance, and we will make that decision. Our goal is to always be safe, but we don't want to inadvertently introduce risk because of rain and as well. So we will balance all of those factors every single day as we continue to have our daily sync calls and work through operations as we go through each one of those tanker evolutions.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to hear your logic on starting with tank 2. Or at least not starting with tank 20. Tank 20 has the most fuel in it. It's almost 11 million gallons. It is the highest risk, and it's next to tank 19, which has been decommissioned for a long time. And I've often wondered why, and if those whatever attributes applied to tank 19 apply to tank 20. Is it possible to I don't know. I'm very concerned that we are leaving the most amount of fuel to the last day to move.
Yes, sorry. So again, the art of moving the fuel is based on the fuel product and the ships and where it's going and how we're going to sequence that. In some cases, we will have to touch some of the tanks more than one time just to get the right mix. The last amount of fuel, tank 20 is the farthest away. And because of gravity, we want to focus on the ones that are closer to Hotel Pier first. So we're starting with tank 2. And again, it's a lot of volumetric calculations based on the tanker. It's not one tank per tanker. The math doesn't work out that way. So we have to balance the type of fuel that are in the tanks, and we are starting with F24 fuel first. Those are JP5 is up on tank 20. That's further away, and that's going to take us a little bit different based on a different calculus based on where the fuel is going, the type of fuel, and the ullage on the tanker. So it's not a one-for-one. I understand and appreciate the concern, but it's something that we've got to balance with the removal.
So you gave some recommendations there, and we'll take them into consideration. Rest assured that we're going to keep the community informed with respect to the amount of fuel that's been removed. I would just like to highlight that sludge is not part of defueling. That is closure, although I do acknowledge that that is a hazard to the environment. but that is part of the closure process.
Distinction without a difference, right? Like for
Right.
us, we're interested in closure and we understand that defueling is
Right.
a step to that. And this is a communication device to
Right.
all of us, right?
Sure.
And we are concerned about closure. So I think it's important, even though it's not in your wheelhouse, it's in
Right.
that guy's wheelhouse. You guys need to work together and you need to have all those numbers for all of us to keep track of.
Okay, thanks for the feedback.
Thank you. And then, so we are at 6:48. I want to leave 5 minutes. And then actually, there's one person in the audience that had a question. So we'll have Walter, if you can just keep your questions really concise. Thank you.
Okay, my question is real quick. You just told us that there was a triple F in the tunnel. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. There's AFFF at the in the where the tank gallery is, at the main header there.
Okay,
The
so
top of the facility, right? It's in the lower tank. It's a lower tank gallery, but it's by the tanks.
okay, so sir, all of the precautions you are taking and everything in the AFFF system is not addressed at all. How are you making sure that we're not going to have a spill of that stuff that lands up in our aquifer?
The AFFF system is not in use. There's no maintenance. It's disconnected. So it's literally just sitting in that header pipeline.
But it is sitting. It's the
It is.
sword. It's the sword that sits over our aquifer.
It is sitting over the aquifer, so is the fuel.
I don't know. Was EPA aware of that? And did you guys think of addressing that at all?
When we put together the consent order, the PFAS spill hadn't happened. Actually, the signing of the draft consent order was, I think, a week after. It was already in process of signature. During that time period, I indicated that we were going to do an investigation, which we have done. We have completed an investigation report. And that will soon be made available to the public. We have been working with the Navy to understand where in the process of closure. So that's one of the aspects as we're reviewing the closure plan that we will be looking at.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to take up any more time. Thanks.
Thank you, Walter. And thank you, Walter, for all your list of questions as well. So we have one person from the community. If you can just, oh, there's a few. Okay, great. So we are on the, just line up. We have only a few more minutes left. So if you can just keep your question concise so that we can have them addressed. And then if we don't get to you, we will have something you can write your question on, and we will follow up on your question. And if you can give us your email, and then we can try to get back to you. Thank you.
Good evening. This question is for Rear Admiral Burnett. On August 8th, in Lahaina, a fire broke out. Their emergency operations center did not work for them. People weren't notified. The answer that you gave to Lacey is not an answer. It needs to be a SOP. Everybody that's on the water line or could be affected, such as the military personnel. I don't want to hear this example of this social media. There needs to be something that everybody can look to and say, if something happens, I am going to expect to hear some way, not a bunch of different ways, okay? That only causes confusion. That's what happened in Lahaina, okay? That did not work. Nobody got information. They wouldn't put on the evacuation sounds to get them out because they were afraid that people would run towards the fire. I don't want to hear any kind of that BS happen here, okay? Something happens, it's your responsibility to figure out how everybody is going to get notified. We're not going to be walking down the road saying nothing's going to happen. That's what Lahaina thought, okay? That's not going to happen. These people need to know. I trust the process, but I don't trust the notification process. So I think you need to beef that up some. As far as air monitoring, they're having the same problems in Lahaina, but they do have purple air. It needs to be every 10 minutes, just like Susan said. It's available to anybody in the public. It doesn't have to be purple air. What we're talking about is the amount of time the notifications. Because what you have to plan for is that if you have a trend and that air monitoring is telling you that people need to get out of there, you need to know what you're going to do to get the people out of there. So there's two things, notifications and air monitoring. I do not wish this on anyone. I wish total success in the process. But it's better to have a plan than to turn up like Lahaina. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was Jamie Semick. She's one of the affected families as well. Susan Piccola, sorry. Oh, so sorry. Sorry about that, Susan. Okay, did you have any response to what she had asked or commented? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question, and I have my homework. We'll make sure we get this right, and particularly for the notification parts. And I understand you, ma'am, and I hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually a good question. Thank you, the notification. And then Ann Wright with the Oahu Water Protectors.
Yes. Admiral Wade, thank you very much for letting us know the Secretary of Defense now knows that we're very concerned about our water rates. And I would just suggest to everyone that we do a little Twitter thing going @SecDef, if that's his Twitter handle. And let's just let him know how concerned we are about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Any comments about that, or? Okay, next.
My only comment would be I welcome that. I also, just for full transparency, when I was asked that question, I told everyone what I did. I respectfully suggested that they also reach out to their elected officials at the federal, state, and local level so that they can continue to communicate through other channels to the Department of Defense.
Thank you. Okay, next on, next, thank you.
Hi, Robert Huber. Thank you very much for being here to answer our questions. I do have one question. Do you have an emergency spill containment team, a plan overseeing at any length of from the start of the tanks down to the ships and or including the Pacific Ocean? What I saw on the spill of that trench that was dug with the water, you know, with all the containment going out, spilling out into the ocean, it just made me absolutely sick to my stomach. You know, I don't want to see that again, that's all. I'm just wondering if you could answer my question. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. So we do have several layers, and I know in the interest of time, I'll be brief on that, and if you want additional detail. We have containment located throughout the facility. We have the initial roving security so that they can take immediate actions, call back to the control room, so that the EOC and the ROC and those individuals that would respond to a spill are mobilized. We also have the equipment. We have the booms and the skimmers that are on site in the harbor. So it extends from Tank 20 all the way down to the pier and into the harbor itself. And there are multiple means from that tank down to the harbor that are in place and or on immediate call in support of any type of response action.
So we have 3 more minutes left, so if you could just keep it concise, Momi. Thank you.
Okay. Aloha mai kako. Aloha all. My name is Davy Ann Momilani Thomas, or Dee. So as I told Mr. Bob Thompson, and many of you here know, I was a 17-year Navy wife, but born and raised from Oahu as well. I did a lot of volunteer for our Hawaii military community within 8 years, living here on Oahu. And not to be disrespectful to you all, because I'm going to be honest, Sir Vice Admiral, I'm just thankful that you're so, I just love the way that you speak to us, honestly. Prior to the other admirals and captains, especially with me volunteering. So one thing that I've noticed, right, when I used to run the neighborhood watch that I introduced to our Pearl City Peninsula Navy housing, where I currently still live for 8 years, I noticed there was lack of communication between our Navy region, Hawaii, our compact fleet, our PACOM, HICM, the rest of our military community, our poor, many Hawaii military residents, retirees as well, including the city officials and the state officials and the local community, when we were saving our gate guards for McGrew Navy officer housing and for Pearl City Peninsula. So I just want, my concern for this is, now that we're in the Red Hill thing, a lot of our Pearl City Peninsula, 635 homes, a lot of my residents, our residents and my neighbors do not know what is going on with Red Hill. They're disconnected. I still see them using their tap water, and I'm not gonna be the one to go ahead and be the whistleblower or put on Freakazoid, to tell them, because in our home, we're still not using our tap water. We're just using the filtered cold water, because cold water, I heard, would prevent us from not going to the emergency rooms. The hot water heaters will. So only cold water laundry with Amazon filters is what we're using only in our house. So it hurts me to know that a lot of our Hawaii military community are unaware of what's going on. And I hope that maybe leaflets, because that's what I wanted to do. I done that for the neighborhood watch. Leaflets door to door, talking to the residents. I know you guys don't want to scare our residents. I know you guys want to move on. You guys are trying your best to do better than the prior admirals and captains that were ridiculous. Sorry for disrespecting, but seriously. So I just want to make sure that there's going to be no lack of communication, that every single of our Hawaii military community and the retirees are going to be aware. Because it sucks that I am the only one in our Pearl City Peninsula Navy housing, and I'm being silent about it because it's too stressful. I don't want to get in trouble for it. I don't want to get retaliated. That I'm the only one that knows everything. And I know not to use the tap water for me or my family. We're still using water bottles to take shower and everything. So I just want you guys to just make sure that all this that has been discussed and the emergency and the safety and the warnings gets back to our residents, because there's still residents that are still having a hard time listening to that giant speaker voice that we hear testing, 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 exercise, exercise. It sounds muffled, and I live close to Victor Wharf. So just thought, sorry, everything I'm trying to put everything in a nutshell.
Thanks,
Just
Moni.
communication, please. Okay, thank you.
And, response to that, and then I want to ask if we can go like 10 minutes over 7, because we have a couple more things we need to just take care of. Thank you. Is that okay with you folks? 10 minutes past 7, and okay, great. Thank you. In response.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that opportunity, and I heard you. I will make sure that we are using every means available to communicate. I know that the installation commanding officer, Captain Mark Sohaney, is very active on Facebook Live and doing things like that, and also going out and having at the neighborhood boards for the installation housing, for the PPV partner housing. But I will keep this in my scan to make sure that we are, particularly as we're getting ready to defuel, that everyone is informed and everyone has access to the apps and knows what's going on, so we can make sure that we're communicating. Thank you.
And then Senator Favela will be our last community
For all of you guys there, and you guys can answer the question after, how long is you guys' position? Because the problem with the Navy, I'm not saying because you guys are part of the Navy, is that they change command every single time. Then we got to start all over like this. We're glad we get somebody sympathetic now. But before that, Secretary of the Navy, we're not defueling. We're not. They took their heads in the ground, but these guys here and the water protectors took their heels in the ground and took it to the streets. Earlier you said that you got the senators, I don't know what senators, I hope you're not talking about in this building, because I'm not a part of no panel. And then you said you're going to let the elected officials know. Then I've even let the senators in their district know that the water was contaminated. And even Iroquois Point in my community, they said it wasn't, it was, it wasn't, it was. Confusion. So just like the previous speaker saying, how are you going to get this? And then when Brother Al over there telling you about the cultural person, you guys said you guys give him Kanaka Mo'ole over there. But that's not what he's asking. You need an observer that's not embedded in the Navy or part of the Navy system. You need somebody that is neutral. Because the only way we're going to get stuff here, and not just centering everything around the Kanaka Mo'ole, but the only thing we're going to get here is the only people that ever listened to us was AMR. When we had asked them for water, and we asked the Navy for water, they never came out to Iroquois Point. AMR did. They had a lot of meetings for their residents and the community. Nothing from the Navy. Zero. So again, we putting a trust in you, putting a trust in our panel here. But again, look at Pearl Harbor. Yeah? Where is the cleanup for Pearl Harbor? Zero. Why? You guys changed commanders. Right now, number one right now on Oahu is Red Hill. And I'm going to tell you, this is the last one I asked. Same to the attorney at the end over there. Sorry, I don't know all you guys' names. I'm not good with names unless you get name tag. Anyway, so at the beginning what he said, where is the documentation showing? So now mind you now, Red Hill, boom, leak fuel. Okay? Community cries out. They want it to be defueled. Boom, cannot, the pipe's broken. How convenient is that? So we want documentation, like he said. I want documentation that the pipes actually was broken. Because you've never had the two leaks, and you know had more leaks than just the two. You guys was going through business, refueling the trucks, getting for what is that, AMFAC or whatever, they had that make-believe war. You guys are going to end up filling those ships up. So before the community went outcry, you guys' pipes was working great. Now the defueling, you get 130 people now. Try to do on defueling that you guys already was doing that when you was filling up the ships. So that's the clarification that we want, documentation, not just verbal. Thank you.
Senator, any comment on that?
Sir, thank you for your feedback. You mentioned a number of things there. So I promised that we would look into, and is it the right term to say an observer? I don't want to disrespect, cultural monitor. I commit to working with General Okamura to understand and to see what we can do, and we'll get back to you. You talked about the confusion in 2021 during the fuel spill. I acknowledge that. I was here, sir. I wasn't in this job. I was at U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, lived at Pearl Harbor. I drank the water. My wife did too. So I know what you're talking about. I had people, men, women, uniformed and civilian, that worked for me at Indo-PACOM that were disrupted and moved out of their homes into hotels during the holidays. It frames the way I approach this mission each and every day. So I just want to make sure that you and the CRI knows that. The one thing that I learned a long time ago, and it's been reinforced 10 times over in this job, and that there is nothing harder than to earn trust. And it's so easy to be lost. And so while my mission is to defuel, there will be a time where the Joint Task Force is disestablished, and the Navy will take this mission over. And if there's one thing that I can convey to my Navy teammates, because I am a naval officer at heart, is that we have to acknowledge the mistakes that were made. They have, but they have to learn from mistakes too, and a willingness to embrace change. I'm confident they will. And everything that we have done at the Joint Task Force, everything that we've established for safety, for security, or for engaging the public will absolutely be scrutinized to ensure continuity of mission, because this is going to take a long time, the closure and the environmental remediation. And it has to be a team of teams approach, and this engagement must continue. And you have my word that that has been conveyed and will continue to be conveyed once defueling is complete and there is a transition. So as far as the hotel pier, I stick to what I said. I can't talk about past spills. That's in litigation. But I will tell you that we have done the integrity, the safety checks. That was factored into the EPA review of our defueling plan. The EPA has approved the defueling plan, and we're waiting for the Department of Health. If there's any issues during defueling, we will notify the public. We will notify you per the consent order. We will notify all other stakeholders, because we're in this together. We're in this together.
Thank you, Admiral Wade.
The only question I know, how long you gonna be here? Because you said that defueling will take a long time. I don't know how you're gonna be in charge. Right now, we're building that trust. Okay? So I just like to know how long is your tour?
I don't know how long my tour is. This is the first job. This is the first job I've had in the Navy that I did not have an end date. It's called a projected rotation date. Okay, but I just honestly can't tell because it's not my decision. But I've been given an order, and that is to defuel this facility so that we don't have another spill. And I understand the generational view that Native Hawaiians have. I understand the concerns that the public has. I want to remove this threat so this doesn't happen again and set the conditions for the long-term environmental remediation that must occur. That's all I can say. I'm sorry.
Mahalo, Senator. So we have some business we need to just take care of. I propose our next meeting will be on November 8th from 5 to 7. Is that just checking with the principals and with the presenters? Does that work for you folks as well? Or
I think we'll make it work as long as it doesn't conflict with the FTAC. Bob, the FTAC, I think, is it what? What date is it? Oh, okay.
November 15th.
It was around that time.
Okay. Okay.
Let us get back to you. We need to have a meeting with you about process and along with a date. We want to meet in November, just need to look at calendars, and it depends on topics.
Okay. I think that's a good answer. Thank you. And also we wanted to establish some subcommittees. Anybody have a motion to establish any subcommittees?
Yeah, I would like to establish a subcommittee that focuses on the safety protocols and invite members of the public to participate in the subcommittee meetings, and also if there are members of either of the regulators, the principals, or of the Joint Task Force of the Navy that wants to participate in that. I would, for me personally, I'm like Lacey, concerned about notification as this defueling process is undertaken. But I think there might be other subcommittees that people might want to form. Okay.
You made the motion.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to form subcommittees.
Okay. It was seconded by Al. And anybody not in agreement with forming subcommittees? Okay, so that motion passes. And
if anyone here is interested in participating in subcommittees, there's a sign-up sheet at the blue table at the top. You just indicate your interest next to your email address and phone number. Thanks.
and we will establish those subcommittees. We would also like to request a tour of the facility before defueling. Is it before? As soon as possible. So we can have eyes on the ground, since we are the liaison between now the principals, the Department of Defense, and the community. Mahalo. Any?
Yeah, so on the tour, there will not be a tour, and that is because of safety and everything that we're doing between now and defueling. We're literally day for day going through all of our safety checks, all our rehearsals, so a tour would not be possible.
Can we have a tour after defueling in January?
We'll take that under consideration. If there's still fuel in the facility and we're doing our, residual fuel, then the answer will likely be no. We've turned down numerous tours here, but we'll work with you, we'll work with the EPA, and we'll figure out what we can do.
Thank you.
Sorry, we have a whole list of things that we need to, okay, so I just want to make one comment about that, is that we need to, again, you had a long speech about building trust, and having eyes on the ground is really important to us. We have skin in the game here. We have children, grandchildren, and, we have to live here, So, again, building that trust, I would ask you to reconsider our request for a tour, you can get back to me later. You don't have to decide now.
No, ma'am, it has nothing to do that I don't want you there. It's a matter of safety, one, and number two, it's to ensure that we stay on our timeline and to do everything that we can do to mitigate risk for this important evolution.
Yes.
I am more than willing to work with the CRI and the EPA. We have a virtual tour that maybe perhaps one of our meetings we could walk you through and show you the path, and there's a way to do that, but we'll have to work through the protocols. It's not something that it's not going to be feasible to provide to the public just because you got to look at this small screen, but it's easily doable with the 10 members of the CRI. So I'm willing to do that. In fact, I've offered to do that for the FTAC committee members. So let's do that.
I would. Is everybody okay with that? I mean, that would be, because you're talking about things that I have a hard time visualizing. So, and that would be very helpful for us.
Perfect. We will work to figure that out. Okay, Lance?
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Eleni, perhaps maybe the subcommittee can sit and talk with them and try to come up with something that will work in terms of a tour so that we can see what we're talking about.
Thank you. And then the next request we have is for soil testing. So is that a possibility soon?
So, yes, ma'am. So thank you for that question. We work in conjunction with the regulatory agencies on the frequency of the testing of the soil. And just so I clarify from my comeback, is a request for testing the soil related to the AFFF release last fall. Am I correct in that? Is that the ask?
Yes, that is
okay.
asked.
So we'll come back with an answer on that one. We'll talk to the regulators and we'll provide you that information.
Thank you. And the last request we have is full payment to the Board of Water Supply for the expenses.
That's Bob's.
Thank you. That's Bob's one.
Yeah, so I will, again, I can say that the issue has been raised into the Pentagon. My leadership is aware. Yeah. I think we'll have a chance to connect us in the CRI soon after this to kind of, not just the action items we've captured here, but others. And so I'll be prepared to come back to the CRI with that status as I know it in terms of current or planned engagement with either Board of Water Supply, Mayor Blangiardi, Governor Green, et cetera.
Thank you, Chair. I was recently at the Makakilo Kapolei Neighborhood Board, and I've introduced myself as a member of the CRI and that we were having this meeting. And they were very upset because no one from the Navy has gone to them and given them an insight as to what is happening, since you folks will be transferring 63 million gallons of JP5 and the rest, diesel, marine diesel, onto Campbell Industrial Park, and that is their district, and they're very insulted that they were not given any warning or notice whatsoever that that much fuel is going to be transferred to their neighborhood, to their backyard. I would propose that we have a committee for community enabled to talk to you. I mean, who do we talk to? Is it you? Is it Okimura? You say he is a cultural practitioner or a native Hawaiian. We have a little issue here because he is Army and not Navy. But what we are requesting, this is separate, I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent, but what we are requesting is a Native Hawaiian practitioner. And we nominated Big Al.
So if there are gaps in community engagement, General Okamura for the Joint Task Force for defueling is the entry point. We will talk to anybody. So just we'll connect right after this, and we'll get the request, and then we'll engage.
Yeah, and I think at the very least, neighborhood boards. I mean, especially to the communities that may be directly affected, and those are published, and set in time. They never change their schedule. So I want to thank everyone here for attending, and I want to thank the presenters, and I want to thank the principals for attending, and most importantly, our community. Thank you so much, and please continue to stay engaged. We will try to advertise and do a better job of getting the information out there when we're going to be setting up our next meeting. This meeting, we had very limited time to set up, and again, very limited time to have this discussion. So October 16th is our defueling date, right? Is a defueling date. So we want to have everyone, please, just encourage everyone, pay attention what's going on, and please reach out to us. We will have, please come and see us if you have any questions you want us to ask on your behalf, or any concerns that you have as well. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please help yourself to food outside as well. This chicken sandwich was awesome.